The play clock reads 3 seconds when the offensive coordinator's voice cuts through your helmet speaker with a clarity that feels surgical. You're standing on the sideline, holding a laminated play card, wearing a baseball cap, watching the starter take a 5-step drop. You know this play. You called it out loud in your head a half second before the coordinator did. You know the snap count, the pre-snap read, the receiver's leverage at the top of the route. You know exactly where the ball is going before it leaves his hand. You also know you're not throwing it. The pass sails into the back of the end zone. Incomplete. The crowd groans. The starter jogs to the sideline, pulls off his helmet, and the offensive line coach immediately orbits him, clipboard angled, voice low, hands moving. The trainer slides in with a water bottle. The wide receivers coach leans in to talk through the route concept. You take one step in that direction, nobody adjusts their body to make space for you. You stop. You take a step back. You look down at your play card. 3rd and 7, same down, same distance. You run the play again in your mind, and you complete it, cleanly. In your head, you've thrown a perfect strike. That's the job. Your contract pays you $2.4 million a year. That number sounds enormous until you understand what it actually buys: the right to know everything and do nothing. You spend more hours preparing for a game than any skill position player on the roster. Film study begins at 6:15 a.m. on Wednesday. By the time the starter walks in at 7:30, you have already charted the opposing defense's third down tendencies, their blitz packages against two-back sets, and the specific corner who shades inside on the second read. You have written notes in the margins of your playbook in 3 different colors of ink. You have watched 214 snaps of the same defensive coordinator's pressure packages. The coaching staff calls this preparation. You call it an elaborate performance with no audience. You are a world-class musician who practices 8 hours a day for a concert where the stage door never opens. The instrument is tuned perfectly. The venue is full. You are standing in the parking lot. The NFL carries 32 starting quarterbacks. Behind each one sits a backup, sometimes 2. There are roughly 60 backup quarterbacks currently on active NFL rosters. Most fans cannot name 5 of them. This is not an accident. Backup quarterbacks exist inside a specific geometry of professional sports, visible enough to be credentialed, invisible enough to be decorative. You stand on the sideline wearing a clean uniform at the end of every game. The uniform is always clean. The practice week has a rhythm that becomes its own kind of torture once you understand it fully. Wednesday is the heavy install day. Full pads, full tempo, full contact. You take first-team reps in individual drills. That part feels real. For about 11 minutes, you are a quarterback. Then team period begins and you jog to the side field with the scout team. Your job now is to run the opposing team's plays against your own defense. You are impersonating someone else's quarterback. You are paid $2.4 million to help other men get better at stopping an offense you will never actually run. You do it without complaint because complaining is how backups become ex-backups. Thursday is lighter, shorts and shells. The starter's snap count drops deliberately, the coaching staff managing his workload, protecting his legs, rationing his reps like a resource under conservation. This is when you get extended looks with the first team. The offensive line is here. The receivers are here. Everything feels for about 45 minutes on a Thursday afternoon close to actual football. You throw a corner route to the second receiver on a rollout concept, and it comes out exactly the way you drew it up in film that morning. The timing precise, the weight transfer clean, the ball arriving at the break. The position coach says nothing. That silence is its own kind of grade. Friday is walkthrough. Shorts, cleats, baseball cap. You are standing in a parking lot mapped out in painted lines simulating a field. You are moving at half speed through concepts that will never involve you unless something goes badly wrong. Saturday is travel. You sit in the 4th row of the charter with the other second-string players. Business class is for starters and coaches. The in-flight meal comes in the same foil container regardless of where you sit. You eat your chicken and pull your hat over your eyes and try to sleep 3 hours before landing in a city where nobody knows your name and wouldn't care if they did. You arrive at the stadium 4 hours before kickoff. The locker room has a specific smell on game day, A combination of athletic tape, liniment, and something electric underneath all of it. A kind of charged air that you cannot explain but can always identify within 10 seconds of walking through the door. Your locker is between the long snapper and a backup tight end. The starter's locker is near the center of the room. Before games, players and coaches drift toward him the way furniture arranges itself around a fireplace. Your pregame routine is indistinguishable from his. You throw the same routes and warm-ups, you catch snaps from the same center. You do the same footwork drills in the same sequence. From 30 yards away, standing in the same uniform, running the same timing routes, you are functionally identical. The difference is categorical and invisible and total. You are warming up for a game you will not plan. He is warming up for a game that will define Sunday's news cycle, Monday's analysis, and the next 6 days of public conversation about this franchise. Kickoff arrives. You stand at the end of the bench nearest the offensive coordinator's headset cable. You hold a printed play sheet laminated that morning. On the sideline, you are a mirror. Every read, every coverage adjustment, every protection call runs through your mind in parallel with the starter's. When he hesitates at the line, you already see the answer. When the defense shifts late and the play concept breaks down, you have already identified the exit. You are solving a problem you are not allowed to fix. This happens 65 to 70 times per game. You solve every one of them. It counts for nothing. Third quarter. The starter takes a clean sack. No missed protection, just a free rusher off a well-disguised stunt, and his left hand hits the turf at an angle that makes the sideline go quiet in a specific way. Not loud quiet, the other kind, the held breath kind, where 40 men simultaneously compute probabilities before anyone says a word. He gets up. He shakes his hand twice, rolls his wrist. The trainer approaches. The starter waves him off. The play continues. But for 11 seconds, the time between the hit and the wave-off, your entire nervous system was running a different program. Your chin strap was already in your hand, not because you panicked, because you prepared. Because the single defining reality of your professional existence is that you must be ready to inherit this game at any moment, in any quarter, against any defensive scheme, having thrown exactly 0 competitive passes all week. The starter gets 220 practice snaps leading up to kickoff. You get 43. If the door opens, you walk through it having barely touched the handle. This is the math nobody talks about. Every backup quarterback in the NFL is asked to absorb the preparation of a starter and the workload of a backup, and then perform at starter level if called. The margin for error is 0. The runway is non-existent. The game doesn't pause to let you find your footing. The crowd doesn't lower its expectations because you weren't supposed to be out there. The defensive coordinator doesn't pull his exotic pressure packages because you've only had 43 live reps this week. You walk onto that field and the scoreboard reads the same as it did when the other man was playing. There is a specific psychological phenomenon that nobody prepares you for when you enter this role: the constant awareness of someone else's mortality. Not literal mortality, professional mortality. Every time the starter drops back, a corner of your attention is calculating impact angles, watching the pocket collapse, tracking the rusher's path. You don't do this consciously. It calcifies over time, becomes automatic. You watch every play through 2 lenses simultaneously, as a coach reading concepts and as a man reading injury probability. This is not something you chose. It arrived on its own, somewhere around the 8th month of your 2nd year as a backup, and it never left. The starter doesn't know you watch him this way. The coaching staff would probably prefer you didn't, but the alternative is being surprised, and surprise in this role is a professional catastrophe. The backup who hesitates costs his team a timeout, a drive, possibly a game. You cannot afford the half-second it takes to shift from spectator to player, so you never fully become a spectator. You are always partially playing a game you are not in. People outside the building ask you what it's like sometimes, usually at family dinners or in the brief corridor conversations that happen when someone recognizes the team logo on your jacket. They say things like, "Must be nice, good money for not playing." You smile at this. The smile is genuine because you understand why they think that. From outside, the geometry is simple. Guy on the sideline, clean uniform, large paycheck. What they can't see is the mental architecture required to sustain that position, the constant preparation for a performance that statistically may never come, the discipline required to care deeply about a role that publicly appears not to matter. Most people couldn't do it for a week. You've done it for 3 years. It happens in the first half of a road game. The starter goes down on a designed rollout. His right ankle turns awkwardly on the turf seam, and this time the wave-off doesn't come. The trainer and the team physician converge. The offensive coordinator's voice is already in your helmet. You're in, let's go. You buckle your chin strap, your hands are steady. This surprises you every time. You expected adrenaline to compromise your mechanics, and it never does. If anything, it clarifies them. The 43 reps this week, the 212 snaps from training camp, the mental reps on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, and every film session since August, they compress into something very clean and very quiet inside your chest as you jog onto the field. The huddle forms around you, 10 men looking at you. These are the men whose assignments you've memorized individually. You know the left tackle's tendency to overset on wide stunts. You know the center's snap timing runs 0.4 seconds faster than the play clock suggests. You know which receiver struggles with route discipline in third and short situations. You have studied these men the way a biographer studies a subject, not to perform alongside them, but to understand them. Now you are performing. The information becomes available instantly, the way a locked room unlocks when you finally have the key. You call the play, they break the huddle. You stand under center, scan the secondary, identify the coverage, check the protection. The ball hits your hands. This is the only moment in the entire week that is entirely yours. The starter is back for the next game. His ankle was a grade 1 sprain. Painful, manageable, a week of treatment and he's cleared for full contact. The 2 drives you played went nowhere. 11 snaps, 2 first downs, a punt, an interception on a tipped ball at the line. The final stat line is a column of numbers that tells approximately 1% of the actual story. The offensive coordinator gives you a brief nod in the film room Tuesday morning. The position coach says, "Good job managing the moment." The starter, to his credit, finds you after practice and says he watched the film and the interception wasn't your fault. You appreciate this more than you show. These are the currencies of acknowledgement available to you. A nod, a brief phrase, a charitable interpretation of a bad play. You collect them quietly and put them somewhere. Wednesday arrives. Film study begins at 6:15 a.m. You are the first one in the room. The projector hums. The opposing defense populates the screen, their third down packages, their blitz tendencies, the corner who shades inside on the second read. You open your playbook. The margins from last week are already full. You turn to a fresh page and pick up your pen. The starter will take 220 reps this week. You will take 43. One of you will play on Sunday. The other will stand at the end of the bench holding a laminated card, solving every problem on the field from 12 yards away, keeping the solution to himself. You've been doing this long enough to understand that readiness is its own form of discipline. Not performance, not proof, just the daily practice of being prepared for a door that might never open. Some men find that unbearable. You find it clarifying. You are very good at this. Almost nobody knows it. That's the geometry.